Hello and welcome to the Spaghetti Noodle Podcast, where our combined powers of spaghetti noodles may or may not be enough to put sauce on your noodles.
I'm in a fever dream right now, aren't I?
That's not the real one.
Sure it is.
I'm gonna be honest, I expected a bigger laugh. Hello, I'm Freddie.
I'm Matt.
I'm Ashley.
I'm Jordan.
And welcome to the Spoilers Almanac, where our combined powers of reflection may or may not be enough to analyze the stories you already know the ending to.
Exactly. So we started out this podcast with the possible spoilers of Joker 2019, the film with Joaquin Phoenix, directed by Todd Phillips. And here we are. We've all seen it. We've all just been dying to talk about this movie again. So before we go any further, you should know that even though this is the Possible Spoilers podcast, this is a segment called Spoilers Almanac, where we will absolutely, definitely, for real, spoil Joker 2019. So if you haven't seen it, we highly recommend you turn back now, unless listening to spoilers is just your thing. That's what you like. If so, then keep at it, my friend. But otherwise, that's what we're going to be diving into tonight. We're actually going to look back on the film, talk about it together, and just generally discuss what happened.
Yeah, and if you don't want spoilers, mute the podcast. Don't close it. It's better for our analytics if you leave it running.
Great point. Yeah, we have our SEO strategist, Freddie Brindle. Just leave it playing. In fact, if you want to just put it on repeat, that'd be great. And then when you're ready,
mute
just
it,
come back.
put it on repeat.
Yeah, and then come back
Go back
and mute
today.
it.
Oh,
Also, we talked about this, and I don't think anyone followed through. We're still waiting on that $50 cash in the mail. So, whenever you guys get around to that, we know you all have busy schedules, but we would greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Unmarked bills in the tree by the park, please.
You know the one.
Real talk, what's an unmarked bill?
Is it the one without the serial number?
I have no idea. It's always the thing in movies. And this isn't the point of this podcast.
No, it's not. My favorite was
All right.
the non-sequential bills because they are printed like the serial numbers in order. So that makes more sense to me because unmarked bills, wouldn't that just be suspicious too? Oh my gosh, there's no Abraham Lincoln on this one. It can't be real.
That's how it's not unmarked.
No,
It's not marked with the president.
I have no idea, but I like that idea.
All right, but to bring it back, this is the follow-up to our main possible spoilers episodes, where we return to the stories that you may or might be looking forward to after we've seen them, and we talk about how right or wrong we were.
Exactly.
Yeah,
In
so-
this instance, I'm afraid we're going to talk about how right Freddie was. That's going to
Yeah.
be the podcast.
you're right about almost everything you predicted, except
really
for
Almost everything.
Almost.
Bat-
There was one thing that was missing.
Old-timey Batman did not swing in and punch Arthur Fleck for a solid 20
Mhm.
minutes,
And
no
on the
matter how
drive
badly
home-
we wanted him to.
On the drive home, I just sobbed and just wept, realized what could have been.
Such wasted potential.
Such wasted, but dag nabbit, Todd Phillips.
But we did have a reference to the old Adam West Batman, so maybe that was the movie makers giving you a nod, like, yeah, we can't put in what you really want, Freddy, but here you go.
Yeah, I hate that IGN had an article that was something to the effect of the Batman reference you probably didn't notice in Joker.
Like when you noticed it immediately.
Yeah, what they were referring to was little baby Bruce Wayne
Baby Bruce Wayne.
outside Wayne Manor, and when Arthur Fleck approaches the gate in that
Good old
scene of the
baby
movie.
Bruce.
Yeah, baby Bruce. And baby Bruce slides down his pole on his
Oh,
string-
yes.
The play
His
set,
little-
yeah.
His little playset
True.
that is way too close to the driveway.
Yeah, that's a really weird place for a playset to be. Which just keys you into the
Predators
fact.
welcome.
It keys you into the fact that this is it's calling your attention to something.
Sure.
And what it's calling your attention to is it's a reference to Adam West Batman. He would always slide down the pole in Wayne Manor that was hidden behind the bookshelf. He would take the bus and he'd push the button and the bookshelf would slide back and there'd be a pole behind it and he'd slide down the pole down to the Batcave. And it drove me crazy that IGN was like the Batman reference you probably didn't notice, because I looked over at Ashley in the theater and was poking her and jabbing her when that popped up and was like, look, it's a reference.
It's like I'm watching the movie.
In
There's
the
nowhere
theater.
else I can look.
But it's IGN. I'm halfway surprised they didn't open the article with, this movie really makes you feel like Joker.
Oh, I hope not.
Oh yeah.
So that's how they open all their video games. Like if it's the Batman Arkham Asylum, if it's Spider-Man, they open with, I'm not kidding, this video game really makes you feel like, and then fill in the blank. So at least they didn't do that for this movie. That was a
8.5 out of 10.
8.5 out of 10.
Too much Joker.
Too much Joker. Not nearly enough Batman beating Joker to a pulp.
I mean, we can all agree on that.
We only had Baby Bruce.
But that does bring me to my first hot take of this episode. That we were talking in the first episode about what universe the Joker was in. And we talked about maybe it was in the Suicide Squad universe since it had the same movie on the marquee and the trailers. Mm-hmm. Apparently that movie on the marquee changed in the final product.
Oh, it did. Because I was thinking that because I was looking at it. I'm like, I don't think that's what it said. That's what we talked about it all, but...
So my hot take is that this movie is in the Adam West Batman's universe. It's a prequel to the Adam West Batman series.
Oh my gosh.
This Arthur Fleck inspired Cesar Romero's Joker.
Oh, no.
Oh, that's amazing. This is before they had the technology to go poof, pow, as they were punching. This is before that, but they had to work with the product of their time.
Oh, to be honest though, that would vastly improve Joker if it was just like stab,
that
shoot,
opening scene
murder,
where
maim.
He's being robbed, and it's just kapow.
Oh my God! If they hit him with that board at the beginning of the movie
with a sign, it was just
sign, and it was pow, and it made that guitar riff like wow. And as they're kicking him while he's down, while they're kicking him, he's down in the alley, and they're kicking him, and it's just like biff, bap, bop, boof.
He disappears behind the cloud of the text boxes. You can't see him anymore. He's just getting beat up so bad.
Oh man, that's
what a product.
That's a YouTube poop waiting to happen.
Truly. Well, this brings me to my first question. Because you're saying it happens in the Adam West universe. I think this is going to set the tone for the rest of the podcast because I have my opinion, but I want to hear what you guys think. So there's the clock theory. Are you guys familiar with that?
No.
Mm-mm.
Okay, so the clock theory is that they look at the different clocks in the movie, and no matter where he's at, they're set to the same time. So they're trying to posit that this all took place like in his mind. That again, which that's one of the things I said last time that I was scared of, but said it didn't really happen because time didn't pass. So I want to again, I have my opinion. I want to keep it for now. What do you guys think? Did this or did this not actually happen?
Oh boy, can I go first?
Please do.
All right, because we're about to throw hands. Because you actually hit a sore spot for me, and this goes all the way back to Taxi Driver.
Okay.
And if you've written or read anything about or heard anything about this movie, then you know that it's Taxi Driver with Joker.
Exactly.
In the original Taxi Driver, there's always talk. And do we care about spoilers for Taxi Driver? Spoilers for Taxi Driver.
Spoilers for Taxi Driver.
Spoiler alert for Taxi Driver. At the end of the film, Travis Bickle, Robert De Niro's character, and the main character of the film, he goes into kind of a house of ill repute, and he kills all the bad people there. He shoots them all. Mm-hmm. And he is hailed as a hero in the media, the magazines, and all these things. And so that leads people to believe that he imagined the ending, that in the ending he actually died when he went into this wretched hive of scum and villainy, and that this is actually his heaven or his purgatory or something where he's imagining it. And almost immediately people started saying the same thing about the Joker.
Exactly.
Now, here's what I don't like about it. I'm sorry, I'm gonna keep going, man.
Truck on, man.
Here's what I don't like about it, and that's that in Taxi Driver, what you are shown throughout the entire movie is Travis Bickle behind closed doors. You see him slowly losing it, and you see an ugly, ugly side of him. You see him attempt to assassinate a senator. Nobody else has seen this in the film. It's dramatic irony at its finest because we know it, other people don't. And he's hailed as a hero despite that ugliness because they haven't seen it. So what the film is saying is that what happened looks really good and is glorified no matter how violent and ugly it actually was. It's glorified violence, and it's talking about the way media glorifies violence. And the fact that people think that it's so too good to be true that he would kill a lot of people means it must be a false ending or some kind of red herring ending. Is proof of concept. People think, people watching the movie, they completely miss that what he did was not an actual heroically good act. And Joker's a little bit different, but the people in the film that he inspires, in Joker, the ones that are burning Gotham at the end of the movie, they enter into that role. They're the ones who only see the end result. They don't see the ugly side of everything that's been going on with Arthur Fleck and how he slowly started to deteriorate over time. So I think saying that the ending didn't actually happen would be cheapening a lot of what's going on.
See, I totally agree. And if I can jump in here, see, I'm the same way. I even said in the possible spoilers episode, I was scared to death of that because I was afraid. I agree with you. It cheapens it. And so if I can spend just a minute here, I think this absolutely happened. Because, again, that was one of the first things I read. It's like, did this actually happen? Was this all in his head? I'm like, please stop. Yeah. Please stop. This is way too good, and it says way too much to do that. And one of the things that really solidified that for me, because I believe this absolutely happened, and the reason I believe that is because he had these hallucinations. He was struggling with these false ideas of what was happening, these false perceptions. But towards the end, when he fully gives in to the Joker persona, it's when those hallucinations stopped. That's when even Sophie, the supposed love interest that had been with him through the whole movie, that's when he realized he was making all that up too. This was all a hallucination. But when he really gives in, even that comes to a stop. So I think if anything is real, it's actually the ending of the movie. If you can argue the rest, I guess, if you want to. I don't want anybody to. But to me, the ending is the one thing that is absolutely not even up for debate as to whether or not that's real.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was real. I think that there were parts of it that, obviously weren't real because we see it shows us some of what's real and what's not. Like his relationship with Sophie, it shows us that it's not real. And there's probably other things that aren't real that it doesn't show us. But I think as a whole, the events that happened in the movie were real.
They actually go out of their way to show us Sophie wasn't real to the point that it almost insults our intelligence.
Yeah, it didn't need to.
Yeah, it really did.
It didn't need to do a montage of all the places she was not at.
Yeah, I agree. I totally understood, like, immediately. I'm like, oh, well, obviously he made this up,
That to me seems like a studio decision, by the way. That doesn't seem like something that Todd Phillips was likely wanting to do. That to me reeks of like the suits in the room telling them like, well, you got to make sure that people know that she's not real.
How will they know?
If there's not a montage with moving music behind it, how will they ever understand?
They probably wanted to make extra sure because of how creepy his interactions with her were.
Well, no, that's a good point too.
Because his first, by the end of his first interaction, where he breaks into her house basically and starts smooching, I was like, she's not real.
100% not real.
Yeah.
Or yeah. I thought so when she opens the door and she's like, "Were you following me?" And she just kind of smiles, and it's like we know that wasn't a good thing. Like other movies kind of show in the past they have showed stalking as like some kind of romantic gesture, but we already knew that this movie was not doing that because it's playing like horror movie music when he's following her around. So we already know, like, oh, okay, he's being a creep.
Yeah, it's also 2019, and we as the audience know a movie's not going to do that.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
I was going to say, if it does, there would be a mass exodus.
Assuming that it's trying to play that trope straight, because you're supposed, like, at that point, you're supposed to be sympathizing with Arthur. So, yeah, if he had just been portrayed as a stalker from the beginning, and that had been his whole, like, shtick with her relationship. But yeah, so can I just say I did want to disagree with you all just a little bit.
How dare you?
How dare
you?
I can already see my time on this podcast is going to be shortly lived.
How long would the podcast be if we
sun
edited
is
Jordan
setting.
completely out of every previous episode as well?
Retroactively remove him from
Jordan erasure.
From
Oh,
reality.
God.
Just go back in
sun
time.
is setting, Owens.
So, like, that was my first thing. I wanted to ask you all how much of the movie is real. And I actually think there's evidence in the beginning of the movie. I like the theory that everything that we're being seen is kind of filtered through the eyes of madness and how much of it is actually happening. So at the end of Joker, we see Arthur Fleck in, I guess, Arkham Asylum, or at least some other kind of mental hospital like Arkham Asylum. And he's talking with his, I guess, counselor, therapist, whatever's kind of going on there with that interview. There's a scene early on. Do you guys remember the scene where Arthur gets the gun from his friend? And the first time he shoots that gun, it goes off and he like completely flips out and like falls on his butt and like is shocked at how much like kickback that revolver had.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
the scene, flash forward from that scene where we see that to me is the first time that Arthur Fleck had ever fired a gun before. And he's completely like over, like it's more powerful than he ever thought it would be. It like throws him back on his butt. He's clearly shocked by it. The scene where he kills the bankers on the train, the three guys that are like accosting the woman, and he starts laughing. If in that scene, he has like perfect aim, like trained Jason Bourne-esque, like he just points, shoots, boom, headshot kind of stuff. And that to me just doesn't jive with everything else that we've seen in the movie thus far. Because we know that Arthur can't hold his own in a fight. Like a couple of teenagers are more than enough to overpower him. And he doesn't know his way around guns because we've already seen him completely stumble after he accidentally shoots a gun. So I don't buy that whole scene. It doesn't seem believable to me that he like executes these three guys with like cold calculating precision. It sounds like something another Joker could do. Like Heath Ledger's Joker could make that happen. But this Joker is not a trained military like gun wielding psychopath. He's just a guy essentially.
Yeah, I'm gonna go along with you on this. Like, even though for the most part, I believe that the things that happen in the movie are real, but I think you do have a good point because, I was talking to Freddie after we watched the movie, and, we were talking about how Arthur Fleck in this movie, he seems almost like two different people.
Yeah.
Like, the Arthur Fleck at the beginning of the movie is a lot different than the when he takes on the Joker persona and becomes more like Joker. He's almost like a child at the beginning of the movie. Like, he's very almost like, I don't know if innocent's the right word, but, almost naive. Like, the way he stands, like, the way he confronts his boss when he's, like, called into his office. And
he's very demure.
yeah, he's very, like, childlike. And
passive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the way he talks. And then later on when he's like the Joker, he's like a lot more confident. He carries himself differently. It's almost like an entirely different person. So going along with this theory, it almost feels like, this Joker persona he has, like, it's almost like who he wishes to be, not who he is.
Well, see, I want to actually spend just a little bit of time because I see where you're coming from, and I kind of agree with it. And I actually like something you said. It almost feels like it's two different people. And this goes into something, I think it was Freddie, help me out here. I think it was one of your theories from the Possible Spoilers podcast that this was not the actual, like, canon Joker, but it is the man who inspired it. Was it you who said that?
Yeah, and
Okay.
I think that's all but confirmed now.
Well, see, and one of the things that really stuck out to me is when he goes on the Murray show, and it's just one little lack of a word. I might be totally reading too much into this, but he goes on and he said, Murray, when you introduce me, would you mind to introduce me as Joker? And he doesn't say the Joker. He says Joker.
Yeah.
It's his name. So I think you're absolutely right, actually. It's two different people because to him, Joker is his name now. It's not just a persona. It's not just a mask. To him, it's his identity. So I think there could be an argument to be made that, no, Arthur couldn't do that, but Joker could. and that's where he's heading. I see this de-evolution of character coupled with insane amounts of adrenaline that allowed him to make that shot on the subway, because he's slowly giving in to the. It's almost like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde type situation, much more subtle, but that same type of idea.
I think a lot of it is that old Hollywood trope of, it's in Breaking Bad too, in the beginning of the Breaking Bad series, that the moment you do your first kind of criminal thing, you're suddenly more manly or more macho or more capable. So, because he comes back in and the day after he kills those Wall Street kids, and he comes back in to work, and he's kind of snidely being sarcastic to Randall, and he punches the time clock off the wall, and honks the horn over his shoulder and drops it like he's just like it's a mic drop, like he's just absolutely turned into Mr. Testosterone, who he definitely wasn't before.
Yeah.
I guess the thing is that it doesn't feel very realistic. Like, it feels very much like a fantasy.
It does.
Because,
oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and I agree that there's some things in the movie where it's not sure how they really happened. And there is that scene I've been thinking about a lot where his boss says, his boss plays up the fact that you're a liar, And so if this movie really is kind of meant to be told from his perspective to the person in Arkham at the end, then of course he's going to make himself sound cooler in some parts, and it actually was. That the scene where he shot the people could actually have looked a lot different, but he made himself sound cooler when he was talking about it in hindsight.
So you mentioned that, Freddie. One of the things that I read is that I think it was Todd Phillips went on record to say that the laugh when he's telling that to the person in Arkham is the first time he genuinely laughs in the entire movie, and it's not his condition making him laugh. Mm-hmm. He's actually like finding something humorous there, and that's that scene that's been memed like from here to the end of time now, where he's saying like, you wouldn't get it. She asks him what's so funny, and he says you wouldn't get it. To me, there are parts of his story that would only ever make sense to him. So I think that he's told the story a lot of times before.
Yeah, I know even. Whoa.
We all had something to say there.
We all had something to say. I shall bow out. You guys go ahead.
Well, I guess I've seen like a lot of people interpret that laugh as, oh, the story's all made up. That's why he's laughing. I mean, I can see where they're getting that, but I don't know if that's really what's happening. It like flashes back to like baby Bruce standing in the alley after his parents are murdered. So it's connected to that somehow. But I mean, Arthur Fleck wouldn't have known that happened unless he
there's no
saw
way
it
for him
on the
to know.
news later. Yeah. I've seen some people interpret that as like, oh, it's funny because like now him and this kid who he thought was his brother but wasn't allowed really to go near, they're now, their destinies are intertwined, they're now connected. But again, there's no way he would have known that happened.
And there's no way Arthur Fleck is the Joker that's going to be against that Batman, because he'd be an old man too. He's got to have inspired the
I think they said he was
Joker.
36.
Yeah, so by the time Bruce was 36, he'd be 60-something.
Well, I mean,
or 70-something.
I always thought the Joker is older anyway. I mean, I think it's possible, but you're probably right that it's not. I mean, like, they have pretty much confirmed that it's not the Joker that Batman goes after, but
here's where the movie
at the same time, I still feel it's kind of lame that, like, the Joker, like, essentially the most coolest villain of all time is actually just a copycat of somebody else.
Like, inspired by Arthur Fleck.
Yeah.
Based on a true story.
This isn't the original Joker. This is just a tribute. Yeah, which there's a lot I want to say about the movie in this regard, because back to the idea of Taxi Driver, this is where Joker makes itself a DC movie rather than just a Taxi Driver rehash, because it takes that idea of I lost my train of thought.
No, you can't do that in the podcast.
I know. Oh my gosh.
We are live.
Oh, well, by taking that idea of violence and the glorification of violence in media and tying it into a social revolution, because there's not really a social revolution going on in Taxi Driver, but there is one going on in Joker. And by tying it into a social revolution and tying Joker and Batman together, even if it's not the Joker, even if it's like some kind of proto Joker, really has this weird effect of these downtrodden people, because you see it over and over again in Gotham in this story. These downtrodden people, and the system is failing and failing and failing, and that's what makes Joker. I'm not going to go say Joker was produced by that, because I think that goes down a weird path. I want to say Joker was a cog in that machine. He was a part of that, and by tying Joker and Bruce together through a social revolution, it says some weird things about Batman. Because
see, I was thinking the same thing. I'm glad you're touching on this.
If it's a breakdown of if Joker's the face of a social revolution, and it's somebody it's a member of this social revolution inspired by the Joker that actually kills Batman's parents, which is the thing I was right about in the first episode.
Yeah, something you got spot on.
Yeah, something inspired by the Joker.
This is 1 point to Freddie Brindle. We're gonna get points, and at the end of this, we'll tally it up and see who's the most right.
So originally, it was so important that Joe Chill was the one that killed Thomas and Martha Wayne, because he was just some crook. He was just some dude. So Batman's war is on crime itself. Joe Chill was the face of street level crime. But by making his parents the victim of somebody in a social revolution, does that make Batman like some kind of capitalist enforcer?
So this is a common reading that I like of Batman, that yes, because it's been pointed out many, many times, Bruce Wayne would have a much more positive impact on Gotham City if he invested his billions and millions of dollars in helping like people in Gotham City rather than building super fighter jets and batarangs. Like, it's been joked about in the comics that Batman's batarang budget could fund some small third world countries before. So, like, who knows what kind of god-awful millions of dollars Bruce Wayne is, like, spending on being Batman.
If it's street crime he's trying to prevent, even not just in this iteration, but in past ones, like Joe Chill is likely murdering his parents because of low economic status.
Yeah.
It's because of poverty. Batman can do a lot more to stop that than just beating people up.
And he could do it outside Gotham too, because the idea of the reason he sticks to Gotham is because Gotham is his city, which really kind of is selfish when you come down to it.
I was going to say, before we move too far, I wanted to say I love the meme that it said Batman, the comic book about a mentally ill billionaire who beats up poor people.
Yeah, that's 100% what it is.
Essentially, this man is crazy, and he dresses up in a bat costume, and he beats these poor people into submission. Well, and there's a lot of subtext there.
Here's the thing to remember. Bruce Wayne as Batman is just as psychologically damaged as anybody he's dealing with on a daily basis. Like, that's the entire point of Batman, to me anyways, is that Bruce Wayne, going back to the Killing Joke a little bit, Bruce Wayne is one bad day away from becoming the Joker. It's just he's able to resist that bad day just enough to stop himself from even going as far as murdering the Joker after Joker has paralyzed Barbara Gordon and tortured Jim Gordon.
I'm so glad that you agree with me on that reading of Killing Joke.
You're reinstated back in the podcast.
Welcome back. 1 point to Jordan.
There are so many people who don't agree with me that he kills a Joker at the end of the Killing Joke. Killing Joke spoilers, by the way.
Yeah, Killing Joke spoilers.
Wait, so are you saying he does or doesn't kill the Joker?
I'm saying he does.
Oh, okay. I never know what to do with Killing Joke. I could argue either way about that story, and that's my favorite thing about that Batman story. Is Batman both did and did not kill the Joker. Kind of reminds me of something that Matt said, like Schrodinger's cat. Like, at the end of Killing Joke, there is plenty of evidence to support that Batman did kill the Joker, and plenty of evidence to support he didn't. So that's why it's such a good Batman story, because it leaves you with that cliffhanger.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned Killing Joke too, because I want to talk about that in reference to Joker, to bring us back to the film. Because we were talking about that memeable scene where he's, that one genuine laugh, right?
Yeah.
Where he says, he says, I just thought of a joke. And she's like, oh, wait, tell it to me. And he's like, well, you wouldn't understand.
You wouldn't get it.
Yeah, you wouldn't get it. That immediately brings me back to the Killing Joke, because he has that joke at the end of the Killing Joke where he starts laughing and Batman asks him to tell him the joke. And he says, well, there's these two inmates escaping an asylum, and one jumps across the gap in a roof and the other one can't. He says, no, I can never make this jump. And the one who made the jump says, I'll turn the flashlight on and you can run across the beam. And the guy who can't make the jump says, oh, do you think I'm crazy? You'll turn it off when I'm halfway across. And I love that ending of Killing Joke. And I love that joke at the end of the Killing Joke, because it's basically saying, it's like a blind leading the blind situation. Joker says it in response to Batman saying he can rehabilitate the Joker, which goes back to what you were saying, Jordan, that Joker's just as broken as Batman and vice versa.
Yeah.
They can't help each other across the gap because neither of them is sane enough to actually figure out a workable
what's on the
method.
Other side. Yeah.
Yeah, that actually follows the laws of physics.
Well, it also reminds me in the end of The Dark Knight, Heath Ledger's Joker says, like, you and I are destined to do this forever, I believe, or something to that effect. And that's the best Batman and Joker stories are always they're each other's nemesis. Like, they both can't stand each other.
And Batman, he doesn't kill, but he's really bringing a lot of suffering on a lot of people, not just by physically beating them up, but he's turning them into Arkham Asylum, which, I mean, it's probably not, the most humane place.
It's not conducive to mental health.
Right. If it's anything like real life asylums, historically they've not been good places at all. They've been places of torture, pretty much, not rehabilitation. So it's just this cycle of all the people he's throwing in there are being re-traumatized, and then they escape or let back out or what have you, just to continue the cycle of, doing crimes. Batman comes, beats him up, and throws him right back in there.
So 2 points about that. Number one, Batman is the world's greatest detective. He should be smart enough to figure out that Arkham Asylum is a terribly run hospital. Number two, I would argue Batman knows that, and that's precisely why he puts people into Arkham Asylum. So he essentially has this revolving door of people to go out and beat back up. So because he's
funneling his hobby.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm not gonna kill you because I'm just gonna eternally torture you.
Because man is the most dangerous game, and he's just put them all in a cage.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Comedy Central roast of Batman.
We've all become jokers. But no, I think I want to go back, if I can, just for a second, because I like Freddie's point of the the blind leading the blind, and they're on two different sides. So one's made the jump and one can't make the jump. And I think, if anything, that is what this movie sets up remarkably well, is that you have what Jordan said, they're both broken, and they're both broken in their own ways, and they're equally messed up. But Batman / Bruce Wayne is on the side of privilege and wealth, and so he's messed up in his own way because of that. And then there's Joker, who clearly isn't, and he's messed up his own way because of that. So you have these two people on two very different buildings, and they're still trying to navigate and figure out exactly what's happening between them, what's happening to them, and why this is all happening in the first place.
Yeah, I would agree that. See, I'm thinking that when he says, you wouldn't get it at that joke at the end, he's thinking of the Killing Joke for that reason. Except exactly. What Joker does to me, though, or does for me, is I don't think it's, we got the Joker who says in Killing Joke, he says the best origin stories are possible choice. So unreliable narrator to the extreme. Mm-hmm. But he also says he experiences his one bad day, and everybody's one bad day away from being him. And I think the Joker is not, or Joker, the film, is not Arthur Fleck's one bad day.
He has a lifetime of bad days.
Yeah. I try to avoid the reading that he's just beaten down becomes this, because that's a pretty dangerous and problematic way to look at criminals and violent people as people who are just, what society does to a man,
I'm sorry. Can we talk about that for just a second? Oh, I'm sorry. If you need to finish your thought, go ahead.
Yeah. So what I was going to say is that this isn't his one bad day. This isn't that he was driven to be this way. He is a cog in this machine. I think
Yes.
Joker is Gotham's one bad day.
See, and I like that because that helps me just a little bit, because one of my least favorite parts of the movie, and I hope I'm not stepping on any toes, but I really did not appreciate this, was in the Murray show, and right before he finishes his joke, there's this to me it feels like such a heavy-handed piece of exposition.
I agree.
And it feels so self-aggrandizing, self-justifying, and I just sat there even in the movie theater, I'm like, oh, please, no. And I couldn't figure out if it was a nice narrative choice or if it was just a really bad choice, period. And I'd love to hear what you guys think about it.
I would argue it's bad writing. No, 101.
I was afraid of that. That was my first response, and I wanted to give it just the benefit of the doubt, but my first response is, that's horrible writing.
Oh, go ahead, Ashley.
Well, I have a couple of thoughts on it. It could just be bad writing. I didn't particularly, like the speech that he gives, but I also felt it was in character. I don't think it's particularly true or anything, and I think it puts mentally ill people in a bad light. I mean, I think it was society that kind of factored into him being this way, but he's still fully responsible for everything he does.
Exactly.
Even though society factors into mental health, most people with mental illness are not violent. Mm-hmm. So that it doesn't account for the violent things he does, but in his own mind, this is what he thinks it is.
And we shouldn't forget that Murray makes good points too, because Murray says all that sounds like excuses, and it is. In real life it is, in Joker it is.
Exactly. Precisely. And that's really what I wanted to get to, is that you say that, it's a dangerous and problematic take to say that it's society that made him this way, because that's exactly what he's trying to say. And I just don't buy that, even from a viewer standpoint.
Because I think what happened with Joker and that what produced him is not society beating him down until he snapped, until he broke or whatever. I think what happened is that he was a fuse set to blow, and society dropped the ball repeatedly. Like, there are so many people who saw so much and could have said so much and didn't in this film. The cops in the movie are inept. The ones who continually, question him, and he says creepy, scary things, and they don't talk about it or say anything about it. He tells his social worker creepy, scary things, and she doesn't report it. But then again, she basically admits that she's stretched so thin because of poor funding, poor mental health.
She's on her way out. So even as he's sitting there telling her, all I have is negative thoughts, she's like, well, somebody else's problem, peace, and then she just leaves. There's nothing to do.
That goes back to our discussion of like socioeconomics in Gotham City, because that's the main problem with that whole scene, is Gotham is rotten from the inside out.
Yeah, there's a garbage strike. There's super rats.
Yes.
Okay, I'm glad someone else noticed that, because I did not, and my wife will not. Like, she keeps talking about super rats. Can someone give me like a too long didn't read on what super rats are?
There's a
rats that are super.
There's a news report in the background of one of the scenes talking about how Gotham has bred a new strain of super rats.
There's so much trash that there's, I guess, bigger than normal rats. I don't think they really say what they are.
We've missed it. This is actually setting up the TMNT movie. It's coming next time, because we have super rats. So that's obviously Splinter. The next one's going to be Turtles. I promise.
That would be amazing.
Please. That's what's going to happen.
To bring it back to Gotham, at the end of the movie, Gotham is on fire. It's literally in flames. It's the Gotham we recognize from the comics and things. And there's a scene in the movie, the perfect metaphor for all of this is there's a scene in the movie where Joker has dressed up as an usher in a theater, and he's gone into the theater, and there's a Charlie Chaplin movie on the screen, and the actor in the film is skating on roller skates closer and closer to the edge of a precipice. Like, it's so dangerous. He's roller skating closer and closer to this edge where he could fall. And it's not particularly funny. But there are people in the audience of this theater laughing at it, and Arthur laughs at it.
I noticed that too.
And it strikes me as like, why are they laughing at this thing? It's not particularly funny. And what it makes me think is that the rich of Gotham are laughing as Gotham skates closer and closer to an edge, to a breaking point. And Joker isn't a result of that skating closer. He's part of it.
I totally agree.
I wanted to talk about that. Like the rich in this movie are not seen in a good light at all. But what I didn't really care for was like how the poor people are seen in the movie. It's almost like they're seen as like gullible and violent, and that didn't really sit well with me. It's almost like, well, there's bad people on both sides.
Yeah, they give a platform to Arthur, and Arthur does not really deserve that platform they give him.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't care about them.
Exactly. I feel like if anybody had the one bad day, it's the people of Gotham, because all it took was Arthur having a moment on the subway where he killed 3 people, and that is all it took to ignite this revolution. So I feel like, Freddie, you said that Arthur was a fuse, and he was just ready to blow at any moment. I feel like Gotham was too, because all it took was one incident, one like isolated moment for people to start wearing clown masks and to ignite this whole social revolution. So if anybody had one bad day, it's them.
The thing is, it is one incident, but it's not the murders. It's what
exactly,
Thomas Wayne says. It's he calls them all clowns. So it's almost like,
I should have clarified that.
Yeah, it's like we can keep going on living our crappy lives, but then once like the rich people start making fun of us, that's where it reaches like a boiling point. But that makes sense, because it's like these are the people in power, and they're obviously not going to help us. Later on he says he's going to, but he's already slipped up.
Exactly. He had his chance to make this right, and he didn't.
So this touches on something I wanted to talk about. Towards the end of the movie, I think when Murray is interviewing Joker, like Joker persona Joker, Murray asks him if he's making a political statement, and Joker says no, that he's apolitical. I would argue, number one, I think Arthur as Joker thinks he's telling the truth, but I would argue this movie is clearly not apolitical, even in the sense of not. Yeah, even in the sense of like Arthur having adopted the Joker persona, which we know people have been using as a political symbol, the clown mask. It has to be political, even if Arthur doesn't realize it's political. By the end of the movie, when the riots are in full force, that is a political scene. And it's worth noting, as you guys are saying, the main antagonist, depending on how you want to look at it, from Arthur's point of view anyways, is Thomas Wayne, who is running to be a politician. So, like, this movie is clearly about, the political system in Gotham and how that has started everything. I'm curious, because it's a garbage strike, it's a sanitation strike. I assume those people would be city employees too, wouldn't they?
Well, see, I want to say something, because I think I totally see what you're saying, and I almost wonder if it's not a matter of, it's not that Arthur's lying or that he doesn't realize he's lying. I almost think that Arthur truly doesn't believe this is a political issue. Like, this should not be a political issue. This should just be, society should be better than this.
Oh,
does that make sense? That, yeah. Like, I don't think if he says it's not political, that's because he's like, no, this can't be political. This is just how things should be working.
Right, and I think there's a couple of reasons that he's apolitical. I think one is to kind of separate the Joker from the social revolution going on, because the people that are suffering, like, Gotham is in a terrible state. There needs to be some kind of social revolution. There needs to be change. But to put the Joker as the face of that, if throughout the whole movie, if he said he was totally for this and everything, that would have like totally different connotations, because we know the Joker's a bad guy. He's not a good guy. And for this bad guy to be part of a revolution that's ultimately for a good cause, it kind of makes that, it's like, do you really want a revolution when like this is your lead, so I think that's why he's apolitical. So the makers of the movie separate him from that. And also, I think, when Arthur reflects on mine, he's very, very self-centered. He sees like everything that's going on is this is all about me. This is what they're doing to me. Like, he kind of acknowledges that, this is people with mental illness or whatever. But that's really it,
Yeah.
Like, he kind of identifies
Yeah.
with other people with mental illness, but we don't really see that on, like, a broad scale. We don't see him, like, going to any groups or mingling with any other people with mental illness, or he doesn't really put himself in with other poor people either. He doesn't really talk about his poverty at all. When he's fired from his job, he's like, no, please, I love this job, not how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to take care of my mom? He doesn't
Good point.
He doesn't even talk about that, so he's not really identified, even though these are things that affect him, he's not really identified in this group of people. He just sees, like, this is all happening to me. It's just me. The world is against me, and I'm sick of it.
When they ask him if he's going to a political rally, he doesn't even know there is one.
Yeah, because
Exactly.
he is much too into his own head. He wants to get into comedy because he wants people to adore him. That's why he likes the whole riots and everything. He likes to be adored. It's not about the political gain. He doesn't care about it at all.
And there's this scene towards the beginning where he hears on the radio a song that says, "My name is Carnival." And he says, "Carnival was my clown name. Like, that was my stage name. People are starting to take notice." And that's right after he's done the thing. And nobody's taking notice. He's imagining this. He's putting himself in the spotlight.
Yeah.
It's very true.
Where he's always wanted to be. He's always imagined himself in the spotlight.
I believe, actually we are kind of approaching the end here. I think we've covered it pretty well, and we're just about out of time for this evening. So is there any last notes, any last thoughts? I feel like we've covered a lot of ground here. I really like this discussion. Anything else you guys would like to throw out before we finish up?
I think I just ranted off everything I wrote notes on, but
Yeah, same here. I actually got to hit everything I wanted to talk about personally.
There's a lot more I could talk about, but
Oh, sure, yeah. We could honestly, I feel like we could make another 2 episodes of the podcast about this movie. I mean, there was a lot going on, and I feel like it's one of those, like, I even joked with Freddie and another friend of mine, like, I saw it out of town, was the only theater showing it at the right time, so I had like a 40-minute drive back to the house, and I was like, I'm really appreciative, like, of that 40-minute time, because I need it, like, to really unpack and decompress from what I just witnessed. There's a lot going on.
It's also a deeply depressing movie.
Oh, remarkably.
Yeah, like, it's not a fun movie to watch by any stretch of the imagination. And I think that's the point. It's not supposed to be a fun movie.
No.
It's kind of a nice palate cleanser after all the Marvel movies that
I would
have been solely my movie diet for the past several years.
Yeah.
If I can say one thing to wrap it up on my point of view, it was kind of something that I thought about with all of your guys' stuff. It's the use of Gotham in this movie as a character, because all of the Batman movies and all the Batman comics always, like, try to show Gotham and, like, what Gotham is as a place. But I feel like this movie did it the best, because you walk out of this movie realizing, like, Gotham City is just a terrible place to live. Like, there's no upside to really living in Gotham. And this movie, like, the visuals of it are so impressive.
Yeah,
I totally agree. It really had the atmosphere and the feel of Gotham that was truly, like, it was disturbing even just to see it, like, to go out in it, and when they're filming the streets and you're seeing this stuff, like, it was uncomfortable even to watch, to see exactly what these people are dealing with.
You brought up Marvel. It kind of reminds me of the scene in Endgame where Ant-Man comes back, and, like, it's supposed to look like post-apocalyptic, and there's all this trash on the side of the road. And that scene to me always seemed weird, because it doesn't fit in with the rest of the movie, and it seems like things are trying to be bleak for the sake of being bleak. But it's funny how in that movie, like, it didn't make sense at all. But here in Joker, having all that trash on the side of the street really, like, hits home that, like, Gotham City sucks. So,
Oh, yeah.
And it's all tied into Gotham reaching its breaking point. It's one bad day, like I said.
Yeah.
What I was going to say is the straw that broke the camel's back, because you could think of way worse, like, real-life issues that you could put in Gotham, but it's garbage. it's not like, I mean, I don't know. Think of all the other stuff. It could be infrastructure. It could be all the bridges out are gone. Like they could have went with a way worse thing, especially for a comic book movie. But they chose something very real. Imagine what would happen if garbage workers went on strike. What that would actually do to a city. So I think it made it very real and very, I don't know. It felt really real to me that this was not some big apocalyptic thing like you said in Endgame. This is very real. This is something I could actually see happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot more going on than the sanitation workers on strike.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Because I think they say they're like in a repression. And
a recession.
People, yeah. What did I say? Repression.
Repression too. I mean,
yeah.
We're gonna talk about it.
Because like the social worker says that people are out of work and they're desperate, and I guess that's kind of her explanation of why he gets mugged in the beginning, and so there's a lot going on, like a lot of moving parts.
I guess for my final thoughts, I just want to finish on a question for everybody, because I want to ask, speaking of things the movie leaves ambiguous, because the movie leaves a lot of questions unanswered. There's a lot of things that you're not supposed to come out of the movie knowing.
Oh, yeah.
Was Thomas Wayne Arthur Fleck's dad?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
See, all right, I kind of think he was, for a couple of reasons. One, this movie worked really hard to even make you, the viewer, feel like you were crazy. Like, it really, like, did I see that? Did that actually happen? Like, how did this actually play out? Like, one of the ones for me was when, at the beginning, when Arthur's boss clearly gave him the gun in the paper bag. It was like, take care of yourself, just don't tell anybody, da-da-da-da-da. And then later he's saying that he stole it and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, did Arthur actually take it? Like, did he actually steal it? What happened? Like, what's the reality of that situation? And it's just like this form of, almost feels like gaslighting. And I feel like that, in my opinion, this is how I viewed it. I feel like Thomas Wayne was his father, but he just gaslit Penny. Was that her name?
Yeah.
Yeah, he gaslit Penny to the point that she went crazy. She didn't believe anything around her, even the reality of her own son. So I don't know. I know there's the records, but again, if you're a man with power and money, those could be falsified.
Yeah.
Those could be doctored. Like, in the back of my mind, I was always like, there's so many ways he could make this happen if he wanted to.
Yeah, I like to think that he really was his father, because I think it goes along with the theme of like the rich and the powerful, having all the control, and they can make reality what they want it to be. Like, it makes sense that he could just change the records if he wanted to.
Exactly.
Yeah, and the thing that calls it into question, there's so many things in this movie to get called into question, and there's always a thing that calls it into question. And the thing that calls this into question is when Arthur Fleck pulls that picture out of his mom's mirror. I can't remember if I think it's after he smothered her.
Exactly.
And on the back of the picture, it's of her as a young woman. On the back of it, it says, "I love your smile, TW," on the back of that photograph.
Yes.
So clearly there was a relationship.
Like he wouldn't write that if he didn't mean it as like a flirt or something.
Yeah.
Although I guess the argument could be made that Penny wrote that herself, that she was obsessed.
That's true.
There's all kinds of ways it could play out.
Again, it's just like everything else in the movie where it's, we come out of it not knowing what's real and what's not.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But Freddie, what's your opinion on that? You're the only one that hasn't
what
do you think?
I just like to think that he's his dad because it's more interesting.
I really agree.
It entertains me more. So.
See, I don't like that idea because I don't want Joker to be Batman's own brother. Like, that just sounds really weird.
Well, it'd be interesting if this guy would be he's the source of Joker and Batman in this case, and he's related to them both. Because in my opinion, this isn't the Joker, this is proto Joker.
Okay, I could see that.
Yeah, I mean, it could be either way. I like the ambiguity.
Yeah, this is ambiguity,
really
the movie, so, I mean, there is no right answer.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to think it was all made up, then go right ahead. It's,
and Todd Phillips said that, he's like, actually, he said, I left it open so that you could decide, is this the real Joker? Is this the one who inspired him? That's really up to you. You decide.
Yeah.
It's like the top at the end of Inception.
Yeah.
No, there is no right answer.
Exactly. It's whatever you want to happen. Well, guys, this has been a lot of fun. Thanks for listening. This is our Spoilers Almanac, where we go back and talk about a thing we have possibly spoiled before, and this time we absolutely, definitely spoil it. there's no doubt we have spoiled so many things about this movie. Probably some things you didn't even realize, even if you have watched it. So,
as well as Taxi Driver, Killing Joke, and Inception.
Yeah, that's on my list for tonight. Thank you.
I don't think saying Inception had a top is spoiling it. There you go. Inception. There's a top in it.
Had a top. It's all ruined now.
Can't watch that now.
Can't watch that movie. Gosh dang it. So thanks for listening. Thanks for sharing. It's always great to see that some people are sharing the links on Facebook and Twitter, that kind of stuff. Check us out on both those places. Subscribe on YouTube. Wherever podcasts are distributed, we are on all of them now. So that was very proud of our accomplishment. Yeah, give yourselves a hand, guys. So we're all there. So give us a listen. Let us know what you think.
Somebody told me recently that they listened to our podcast on something called Podcast Republic. Didn't even know that existed, but I'm glad we're there.
I'm glad we're there. We're wherever you need us to be. Possible spoilers.
Whether we know it or not.
Everywhere.
That's our holiday
campaign. Home.
That's our holiday campaign, guys. We're wherever you need us.
You're just cleaning out your house. It's like, Possible Spoilers podcast. I didn't expect this to be here.
How long has that been there? Flipping over your couch cushions.
The junk drawer in your kitchen.
That's been the whole time.
Between the scissors and the watch batteries.
Well, guys, thanks so much for listening. Tonight we have absolutely spoiled Joker 2019.
Spaghetti out of my fanny pack. Straight from our fanny packs into your ears.
It's pasta block.
It's one of the worst sentences I've ever heard.